Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Public Safety Forum today. I'm Dewitt Peart with the Downtown Austin Alliance. We are pleased you're joining us today for the forum that we are co-hosting with Councilmember Kathie Tovo. I'm going to make a few opening remarks, and then I'll turn it over to the council member for some remarks, and then we'll go to the panel discussion. So for context, with so many few people officing, entertaining, or visiting downtown in 2020, there were significant reductions in almost all serious crime categories in the public improvement district in all of 2020 compared to 2019. Comparing crimes for the first 6 months of 2021 to the same period in 2020, the results are mixed, with some types of crime being up while others are down. Comparing crime data for the first 6 months of 2021 to the same period for 2019, we see that some serious crimes this year are pacing below 2019 levels, while others are up from 2019. One of the most concerning trends, however, is the increase we've seen in shootings, particularly late at night in the entertainment district. Through June, there were 4 homicides in the public improvement district this year, compared to 1 for the same period in both 2019 and 2020. While the city as a whole has been consistently ranked among the safest large cities in the country, and our downtown has been reflective of that, we are seeing concerning increases in homicides, gun violence, and other crimes across the city and downtown. At the national level, of the 70 largest cities, about 1/5 of the US population, the murder rate has risen 35% in 2020. The largest previous increase year over year was 13% in 1968. We experienced a 2-decade decline to a historic low in murders in the year 2014. And for reference, 1991 was the peak year for murders in this country. These headline-making crimes, combined with increasing numbers of people living on our streets, aggressively panhandling, and experiencing untreated mental illness issues in the public space, creates the perception of an unsafe environment downtown, and is a growing concern among downtown property owners, business owners, residents, and visitors. What we hope to hear today is how our police department, our county attorney, and district attorney are working to effectively reduce and address crime and improve public safety, and what you can do to keep yourselves, your employees, your patrons, and your property safe. With that, I will turn it over to Councilmember Kathie Tovo. Kathie?
Thank you very much. I just want to say a few words of welcome this morning. I'm Kathie Tovo. I have the privilege of representing City Council District 9 on the City Council. District 9 includes most of downtown, along with many other neighborhoods, north, south, east, and west of the downtown area. As the downtown representative on the City Council, I have heard increasing concerns over the last several years about safety in the downtown area. You just heard the statistics, which indicate that Austin remains one of the safest large cities in the nation. However, the increasing number of murders and gun violence in the downtown, and of course, the mass shooting that claimed the life of one individual and seriously injured several others, are of paramount concern to me, and I know so many of you. And those of you who live and work and have businesses in the downtown area have also raised concerns to my office about increasing incidents of theft, criminal trespass, aggressive and violent threats and behaviors. So I'm very grateful to the Downtown Austin Alliance for co-hosting today's forum. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you both for the work that you do every day, but also for being here today to provide a broad look at the current situation, as well as guidance on how we can all work together to improve safety in the downtown area. And thanks to all of you who have tuned in this morning and remain engaged in this topic. I'm going to very briefly introduce our panel moderator for today's session. Today, we have the privilege of having three very distinguished panelists on our forum. Interim Police Chief Joseph Chacon began his police career with the El Paso Police Department, where he worked for 6 years in a variety of assignments. He has spent most of his 28-year career in investigations, either as a detective or supervising in the homicide, robbery, sex crimes, child abuse, and special investigation units, as well as the organized crime division. He is a graduate of the University of Texas at Arlington School of Urban and Public Affairs, where he earned a master's degree in public administration. He received his Bachelor of Applied Arts and Sciences from Midwestern State University in Wichita Falls. He is also a graduate of the Police Executive Research Forum Senior Management Institute for Police, Texas State University Certified Public Manager Program, and the MCCA Police Executive Leadership Institute. He has served as our interim police chief since March 2021. Travis County Attorney Delia Garza has served in this office since January 1, 2021. Prior to her service in that role, she served on the Austin City Council representing District 2 from 2015 to 2021. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism from Texas A&M University and a JD from Gonzaga University. From 2011 to 2014, County Attorney Delia Garza worked as an assistant Attorney General advocating for Texas families in the Child Support Division of the Office of the Attorney General. Her professional experience also includes work as a law clerk for the Texas Civil Rights Project and as a firefighter with the Austin Fire Department. She was first elected to the council in November 2014 to represent District 2. I had the pleasure of serving alongside her. She was reelected in November 2016, and was elected by her colleagues at that time to serve as the Mayor Pro Tem in January 2019. She is the first Latina to serve on the Austin City Council and was the first Latina to serve as Austin's Mayor Pro Tem. Travis County District Attorney Jose Garza was elected Travis County District Attorney in November 2020 and has served since January 2021. He attended law school at Catholic University in Washington, D.C. and worked for Judge Richard W. Roberts in Federal District Court for the District of Columbia. He returned to Texas to work on the border as an assistant public defender at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. Subsequently, he served as an assistant federal public defender in the Western District of Texas, later as Deputy General Counsel for the House Committee on Education and Labor. He went on to work as special counsel to the National Labor Relations Board, and then as a senior policy official at the U.S. Department of Labor. And our moderator today, Leslie Rhode, is an award-winning television journalist with a career spanning more than 20 years in Washington, D.C., Texas, and Arkansas. She's been a lead anchor and reporter covering stories of national consequence and local economic impact. Along the way, she has interviewed top political leaders, including a U.S. president, Fortune 500 business leaders, and Hollywood celebrities on the red carpet at the Oscars. As a recognized news leader, she has collaborated with top media industry consultants and executives. She's worked at many television stations, including WJLA, KXAN, KHBS, KHOG, and KAIT, and now serves as a communications consultant. And we are so fortunate to have her here with us today to serve as moderator. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Leslie.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Tovo, and also the Downtown Austin Alliance for once again hosting this important discussion today. I think both of you have laid this out so well, our topic, that I'm just going to jump right in. We know our panelists and we know what we're here to talk about today. It's really important that we get educated on this topic and also really talk about how the community can take part and help out. So I want to begin just with a very brief, allowing each of you panelists to introduce yourselves in terms of what role your office or department plays as it relates to these public ordinances. I'll begin with you, Chief.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Thanks to Councilmember Tovo, Dee, and the Downtown Austin Alliance for putting this together, and for everybody that's tuning in. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about these really important issues. For the Austin Police Department, obviously, we are kind of the most visible and the first responders on many of these types of issues. And so from an enforcement standpoint, we make policy and practice decisions on handling these cases on a day-to-day basis, as well as kind of putting together the phased implementation plan for Proposition B and how that has been proceeding. We're now in phase 3, and my district representative team continues on a daily basis to work through that plan. So with that, I'll just kind of turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We're going to go to County Attorney Garza next.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having us here. I think it's a really important forum for us to be able to let the community know what our roles are, and also to let the community know what more we can do together to improve the safety in our community. The County Attorney's Office is responsible for prosecuting misdemeanor crimes. We also have a civil side. And with regard to, if we're talking specifically Proposition B, the county attorney does not, that is a city ordinance. So that is prosecuted by city prosecutors. So those do not fall within the county attorney's jurisdiction.
All right, thank you for that so much. And District Attorney Garza now.
Well, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Councilmember Tovo and Dee. I'm so grateful to the Downtown Alliance for hosting this conversation. And I'm grateful to everyone listening at home and in the office. I think because of your initiative, because of your work, downtown Austin is the most vibrant and successful city center in the state, and one of the most successful in the country. I'm hopeful that this is the first of many opportunities that we will have to work on the topics that impact our community. And I'm eager to work along with all of you to ensure that downtown continues to be safe, and that we continue to bring serious solutions to the challenges that face our community. At the Travis County District Attorney's Office, we are responsible for prosecuting felony crimes and juvenile crimes. And so, of course, our office takes acts of violence or any crime that would threaten public safety incredibly seriously. That's why we have prioritized our resources to ensure that we can bring the best cases forward on those kinds of offenses, so that we can ensure that anyone who commits an act of violence or any crime that threatens public safety in our community is held accountable and held responsible. So far this year, our office has sought and received over 500 indictments for acts of violence, including capital murder, murder, aggravated assault, sexual assault, gun violence, crimes against women. And so, in addition, I just will add quickly that our office also created a major crimes and homicide unit so that our prosecutors can support all law enforcement in the county who are investigating these serious crimes, to ensure that when the case gets to our office, it is as ready as it can be for us to proceed with prosecution. But Leslie, I will say, I also believe that if we are serious about addressing violence and violent crime in our community, we must together work to address the root causes that lead to violence in our community in the first place. And that's why I am incredibly grateful to the Travis County Commissioners Court, who is moving forward with a proposal to create a diversion center that I believe is one of the cornerstones of a safe downtown Austin. And in my office as well, we have expanded our pretrial diversion program so that for low-level offenses, we are ensuring that people have the support and services they need, that we're addressing the root causes of crime, so that we can ensure that people don't commit crime in the future. So looking forward to the rest of this conversation. That is some of the work that our office has been up to.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And as we begin more questions, I should say, I don't think it has been mentioned, the questions this morning have been gathered really by the Downtown Austin Alliance and members. So I'm sure some of the topics in these questions are thoughts and concerns that many of you are taking part in the webinar this morning will have. So we'll be using those questions today. And again, we're talking about Proposition B and the ordinances that come along with that. So we're going to stick specifically to those ordinances today. I'm going to begin with the question that for all three panelists, so we'll go sort of round robin here. Please identify, and you may have mentioned a little bit about this, but I want to open it up to give you opportunities. Please identify the policies or programs that your office has implemented or is planning to implement to improve safety, effectively divert or prosecute and rehabilitate offenders, restore the community, and ensure that we have a fair and a just system. Chief, let's go back to you.
Thank you, Leslie. You know, there's really a few programs that I'd like to highlight this morning. For the last several months, I've been talking about our violence intervention program. This is a program that was specifically designed to target our most prolific violent offenders and those that are using guns in criminal offenses. So far, we have made 59 arrests. In those 59 arrests, 165 different charges have been filed, and we have seized 109 illegally owned firearms. So those are off the street. I think it's important that for our community to know that we continue this work. We are very concerned about what is driving our violent crime right now, which is our homicides and aggravated assaults. We're actively working with our partners at DA Garza's office on effective prosecutions, as well as with the U.S. Attorney's Office for when those offenses might be charged federally. Additionally, I would talk about our crisis call diversion program. This is a program that we've been working on for well over a year and really implemented in late 2020 in our 911 call center. So this program actually looks to divert those calls that are of a mental health nature to a counselor that is on the floor and is ready to take that call. The latest statistics that I have on that program were for April through June of this year. During that time, we had 11,751 911 calls that came into our call center, which we identified as having a mental health component. Of those, 1,204 were diverted. So just over 10%. I think that that is a good start for us. Those numbers have continued to climb. And we're the only call taking center in the country that has that fourth option on the call taking script, which is, do you need police, fire, EMS, or mental health services? Finally, I'm just going to say that you know, we've been working with Councilmember Tovo and other members of council on how we can partner with the newly created Office of Violence Prevention to look at ways that we can look at the root causes of what is causing and driving our violent crime, and particularly in the downtown area, how can we affect that?
All right, thank you so much for that. County Attorney Garza?
Leslie, I know you said the focus was on Prop B. I just want to reiterate, Proposition B is not is a city ordinance, and so maybe we should have had city prosecutors here to respond to those specific questions. But it's hard to speak about the work that our office is doing outside of the context of what we're doing as a whole. And so I'm going to speak to that a little bit and give some of the highlights of the work of the programs that we've implemented. Our office is really focused on prosecuting violent crime and diverting nonviolent offenders. So just to give a general understanding to the public that I know does not know a lot of what happens, you know, after somebody has been arrested, and on our side, the bulk of our cases are family violence cases and DWIs. And those are the cases that we have significant backlogs on. And so some of the things we've done to help increase the safety of our community is we are focusing more resources on those family violence cases. We have hired more family violence counselors. We are asking our prosecutors to engage with survivors sooner and provide more resources in that effort. We've expanded eligibility for our diversion programs, like our DWI diversion programs, instead of putting people in jail, giving them the opportunities to get services. There are significant studies that have been done very recently that show if you can divert people outside of the criminal justice system, specifically for misdemeanor type level of offenses, you actually reduce the chances that people will recidivate. And so we are using fact-based research to implement some of these policies. We've also standardized our weapon forfeiture policy. And according to some of our constables, we have taken about 100 guns out of abusers' hands, which is more than had been done in the previous 3 to 4 years. One thing that we have changed that I think that this audience is very interested in is our early case review. Because we are still in the pandemic and unfortunately looking like we might stay there a little bit longer, our prosecutors have more time to look at cases sooner and to determine if it's a case that's ripe for prosecution. And so because of that, we have started a process where we look at cases pretty soon after a person has been arrested to determine if that case should go through the criminal justice system. This is a new process. This is a process that many of my predecessors had talked about before. We have been able to implement it in a cost-neutral way, and we have our prosecutors reviewing cases earlier. So instead of doing it after somebody's gone through the magistration process, we've been able to do it earlier. The only cases that are ripe for this early case review are non-violent cases, are cases that we determine do not pose a threat to public safety. I also want to just early on in this process, I know there's a lot of misinformation about our new policies that say we have not, that we have no rule in my office that we are not prosecuting any type of case. We are still prosecuting criminal trespass cases. We are still prosecuting every offense that falls within the jurisdiction of this office. And we have not given any instruction to police officers to not arrest on any type of offense. And so I know that that's one of the main questions my office has been getting. We continue to prosecute criminal trespass cases, again, weighing a variety of factors and looking at each case on a case-by-case basis. And again, it is not ripe for that early case review and possible dismissal if it is if there's any type of violence involved in that type of case.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. And I do want to remind everyone on the webinar that when I said specifically Prop B, we could widen this to about safety. It's about safety efforts and the perception of safety in our downtown. So thank you so much for clarifying that. And again, what the community can do to take part in that too. So let's go to DA Garza now, I believe.
Absolutely. Well, let me also just add to that point that our office likewise has no specific role in enforcing Prop B. But I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about some of the other initiatives that I think are and will have significant impact on our public safety as a community. I've already mentioned several. I've mentioned our new homicide and major crimes unit that has the goal of ensuring that every case, particularly the serious cases, are ready for prosecution when they arrive at our office. I have talked about our focusing our resources on crimes of violence, particularly homicide. And I want to name just a few other initiatives that we are working on. The first is that we have adopted new policies in our office that really seek to center victims in our criminal legal process. They seek to ensure that our communication with victims of crime is as good as it possibly can be, that victims are consulted and heard at every phase of a criminal proceeding so that we are taking into account what justice is for any victim of crime in any particular case. And I'm very excited about that. And I've had the opportunity to hear directly from so many people in our community who have been impacted by crime. And I'm so grateful for their courage and perseverance as they move through this process. I also want to name that our office has also adopted, for the first time ever, a firearm surrender protocol to ensure that people accused of crimes who may pose a threat to our community um, don't have access to firearms while their case is being adjudicated. And so what we have done is given specific guidance to our prosecutors so that they can seek the removal of firearms from people who may pose a threat to our community. And I'm grateful to our partnership with County Attorney Garza and to the Precinct 5 Constable Office for implementing this program. I also just also want to talk for a few minutes about our early case review process. Like the County Attorney's Office, our office reviews what are called probable cause affidavits, the evidence that makes up the basis of an arrest and the initiation of a criminal proceeding at the point, essentially, that a case enters our criminal legal system. And it has been, I think, from our perspective, a really important process, and one that we are hopeful is going to lead to increased early communication between our office and all law enforcement offices within the county, and that is going to ensure that our prosecutors are spending their time on the most serious offenses and those that have the necessary legal requirements to move forward in our process. So those are some of the projects that we have underway, and looking forward to talking about more as the conversation goes on.
Wonderful. Thank all three of you for that. We want to move on to roles that the community can play in safety, keeping our area and our community safe. And we're talking about things like what to look for, behaviors to look for, what number to call. Is there a place to report something that they may see something that may be illegal? Also in the criminal justice process, can the community play a role in that, in keeping our community safe and just keeping property safe? So in that general area, what role can the community play to help your office, Chief?
Thank you, Leslie. So I think it's important to just talk about, start from a common sense standpoint. When you're going downtown, to have a plan on, if you're planning to drink, how to get home safely, to not put yourself in a position where you become an easy target of property or violent crime. And I've said it a few times, if you're planning on coming downtown, don't bring a gun. It does not make you or anyone else that is downtown safer. Downtown, we staff it differently than we do the rest of the city from a policing perspective, and bring a lot of officers into our downtown entertainment district, particularly on weekend nights, to make sure that we have plenty of folks down there to address anything that might happen there. I think just from how can the community get involved? There's a number of things that are going on right now, including the phased implementation of Prop B, continuing to be good stewards of our community, to communicate with the police when they see that crime is happening, and make sure that they are calling either 311 or 911, depending on whether or not it's an emergency. If they see encampments right now that they know are not allowed under law, under the new ordinances, to go ahead and call 311 and make sure that we're aware of them so that we address them through that phased implementation. Overall, for public safety right now, there's a number of different ways that the community can get involved. The Reimagining Public Safety task force panels were held, and there was a huge community and a component that was involved with that, as well as with the reimagining of our police academy. So the video and curriculum review that was going on and continues to go on with that, to make sure that we're training officers in the way that our community expects. And then, of course, there's a chief of police search that's going on right now. So make sure that the next chief of police is one that the city has had that input and is able to have a voice in that choice.
All right, thank you, Chief, for that. County Attorney Garza, now your turn.
Well, I think generally speaking, the chief is the best to answer that question, in that, police officers have a tremendously hard job. They're the first ones there, right? They have to make incredible discretionary calls, and our community looks to them, and so generally speaking, with regard to what does our community look for? If you feel you are in an unsafe situation, if you feel your safety is at risk, or somebody else's, you should call 911. That is, that's what everybody should do if they feel that their safety is at issue. But I also just, more broadly for the community, want to point out that when people are making that 911 call, so many times, we are responding, right? We are responding to something where something possibly bad has already happened. And I urge us to think of what the community can do more upstream. When cases come into, when a police officer is responding to something, or when cases come into our office, our institutions have failed people so many times, and it has brought it to this point where police are being called and our office is being involved in possibly having to prosecute. So what can the community do? There are so many great organizations, but it's also important to invest in social services, in housing. These are all proactive ways to address crime. If people have their basic needs met, if all of our community had their basic needs met in housing, in food, in healthcare coverage, we would not, I am positive we would not see these rising crime rates. And so I know it's the next question, and I honestly can't wait to talk about what our community can do to get involved in this discussion of a diversion center. What's happening in our criminal justice system is not new in so many ways. This revolving door of people who are in poverty, of people who are suffering from mental illness, and this revolving door through our criminal justice system is not new. This has been happening for decades. And I think what we should have all learned from this is it's not working. The way that we say, we have this culture of saying, we'll put them in jail and that's where they'll get the services that they need, is not working. And we need to think of it a different way. We need to think of investing in people before that 911 call was made, before they're a case on, in our office or on a judge's docket. And so I know that the DAA is heavily invested in solutions like this, in creative solutions like this. And in fact, when our office has fielded calls from business owners, and we turn the conversation to, we need a diversion center, we need more robust social services. I am so grateful to many of the members of the DA who step up and say, tell us where we can, help. What kind of fundraiser can we have? How can we be part of this? And so I think that really is the most effective way to address some of these, to get to the root of many of the issues that our city is facing.
Thank you very much. We will definitely get to that diversion center a little more, but I want to give DA Garza a chance to talk about the way the community can support and help with safety.
Absolutely. Well, let me try to, I think, emphasize some of the points that the interim chief and the county attorney have made. First and foremost, we really depend on members of our community to report crime when they see it, to report crime if they are the victim of crime, and to cooperate with criminal investigations. It is so important that if you witness or experience crime of any kind in our community, that you let the authorities know and that you be willing to continue to participate in the criminal justice process until that specific case has reached resolution. And I also just want to make sure that everyone's aware that if you have been the victim of a crime, or if there is a crime that has happened in your community, if you report that crime and you have questions about how that case is moving through our process, all of our prosecutors and me are available and willing to sit down to meet with you at any time to answer your questions about any particular case or any particular crime that you may have witnessed or been a victim of. I also want to emphasize one of the points that the county attorney made earlier during this discussion. Our office at the district attorney's office has enacted no policies that would prevent any law enforcement from investigating or making arrests in any type of offense. We've tried to be clear that our office is prioritizing acts of violence, prioritizing the kinds of crimes that pose a threat to public safety. I have also tried to be clear that our office is continuing the practice of the prior administration, not to prosecute low-level drug offenses. The only difference is that our office has made two changes to that policy. The first is that we have an exception for any drug offense where law enforcement believe that there is a threat to public safety. We will move forward with those cases, or any offense, any drug-related offense that is part of a larger criminal case. We will and are moving forward with those kinds of cases, and I appreciate the working relationship we have with several of the law enforcement entities across the county. But I am aware that there is some misinformation out there about what our office is and is not prosecuting, and what impact that may have on law enforcement. We have, I think, had good conversations, the county attorney, the interim chief, and I, about this topic, along with the city manager. And I just want to emphasize that there are no policies our office has enacted that would prevent law enforcement from investigating crime or from making arrests. And then, just as a brief transition into our next question, I just could not agree more with the county attorney. We know that, generally speaking, what leads to increases in crime is instability in our communities. And if we are serious about addressing violent crime and crime generally, we must ensure that we are working to root out instability in our community in every way we can.
All right, thank you for that. I think I'll go to County Attorney Garza on this one, since she did mention this prior. We know that the Travis County Commissioners Court has recently passed this resolution to pilot this diversion center. It's a mental health diversion center. It really gives an alternative to addressing the needs of offenders who are determined to have some mental health needs, some services. So I guess just the question is, how will this help public safety?
I can't emphasize how this would tremendously help public safety. As I mentioned before, this revolving door by people who are committing usually crimes of, not having money to buy food, not having shelter, not having access to mental health type of services. This revolving door is not new, and I know that all the members of this organization know that. And so there needs to be a change in how we address those types of, because the revolving door was already happening, and it's not going to get any better if we can't provide true services to people who need those types of services. Right now, we have an amazing opportunity with a huge amount of federal funds that will be coming into our community. And our city council is talking about how they will use that money, and our county commissioners are talking about how they can use that money. Harris County has a diversion center, which a prosecutor there, it's a different type of system, but a prosecutor will get a call from a police officer, let's say it's criminal trespass, and the prosecutor says, we're not going to file that case. The officer can then take that person to a diversion center where they have access to a bed, somebody, a counselor of some sort, to a variety of services that will keep them out of the criminal justice system. Because really, if we're being completely honest, what many of our business owners want when they have a criminal trespass issue is they want the person removed from their property. And time again, I talk to some of those business owners and they even say, you know, I don't want this person to necessarily go to jail, but I also don't want them on my property and I don't have any other option. And then the police officers will say the same thing. They don't have another option. Their only option is to take them to jail. And so we need another option. We need somewhere else to be able to provide people an environment where they can get true help. And I can tell you that when our Travis County Jail is the biggest provider of mental health services, we have really gone in the wrong direction. I hate to get political, but you know, we live in a state where our governor has not expanded Medicaid for people who, this is free money, free federal money that we could use to provide people medical care. And so there are so many things, you know, along the chain of somebody's life who needs help that we have failed them. And then that puts them in this position where we're at a forum talking about how we fix this in the criminal justice system. So this Tuesday, just one of the things that's being discussed is hiring a fellow who would commit time to creating this diversion center. And it's a free fellow. It's a nonprofit that's offering the county volunteer work, a professional who's done this work before, to be able to focus in. We have limited resources, just like businesses have limited resources, government has limited resources. And this will provide the county the opportunity to have someone focus on this diversion center. It's working in other communities. I'm not gonna, you know, let's be honest, it's not gonna solve all of our problems, but at least it's a step in a different direction and will hopefully stop this revolving door and puts us on a path, at least on a path, even if it's a pilot path, to see how much better we could make our community if we could provide people who need shelter, who need food, who need healthcare. Look at Mobile Loaves and Fishes. Look at the amazing work that's happening out there. And if we could expand those types of services, I think our business owners downtown would see a tremendous change in some of the situations that they're seeing.
Thank you so much. Chief, how does this diversion center change the way your office and people on the street operate?
You know, I'm in much agreement with County Attorney Garza in that it provides another option for law enforcement. This is an area that I've been working in for a number of years to see on particularly low-level offenses, which is the vast majority of people that are in mental health crisis are arrested for, diverted to something other than jail. So the Behavioral Health and Criminal Justice Advisory Committee that Travis County and APD, the DA and county attorney offices, we have our local mental health authority are all involved in looking at a diversion center that would be effective to give officers somewhere else that they can take them. Because I think the county attorney said it right when most business owners are like, I really don't want this person to go to jail, but I just don't want them here. Officers have nowhere else they can take them. So this is something that I personally, and I think our profession has been advocating for some time, is something like this. And I think it'd be good for our community.
How do you think it would help with that revolving door the county attorney referred to?
I think that it's going to depend on how it's implemented, because when we take someone to a diversion center, obviously they're not incarcerated. They have the ability to walk out. And so are they going to go back? I think all of that needs to be thought out. It needs to be planned for. And that, in the end, what we're trying to do is get people the mental health services that we know they need. I think sometimes they may not know that they need, and they're resistant to it. And so, that's going to be one of the things that I'm sure that this fellow who's brought on is going to be working through, and we're ready to partner as well.
Okay. DA Garza, your thoughts on this diversion center?
Well, historically, the Travis County District Attorney's Office prosecutes more drug-related offenses than any other kind of offense every single year. Those are resources that we are not putting towards acts of violence like gun violence, violence against women, homicides. And we know that here in Travis County, that the percentage of people struggling with substance use disorder who also have unmet mental health needs is upwards of 60%. It is time that we here in Austin and Travis County, and to the county attorney's point across the state, begin to treat substance use disorder and unmet mental health needs as the public health crisis that they are. And so, we just have a responsibility to make sure that people can get the services they need outside of a carceral setting, because if we do, that will make our community more safe. I am really grateful, first of all, to the interim chief, who I know has been a champion of this concept and who has been working through solutions like this for a very long time. And I'm also grateful to the Commissioner's Court, who has taken some preliminary steps to get us down this path. Now, as the county attorney said, for those of you who care about this issue, tomorrow is actually a pretty important day in Commissioner's Court, and I think you should all tune in. I do my best to keep up with Commissioner's Court. I'm sure I miss details here and there, but I do know that tomorrow there are at least 2 proposals that the court will be considering. As I understand it, the Commissioner's Court is contemplating 2 paths with respect to a diversion center. One is a pilot that I think could be pursued in conjunction with the sobering center. And then the second is, I think, what I understand to be a robust and sort of all-encompassing approach to the crisis of people with unmet mental health needs and substance use disorder on our streets. Now, I'm not sure if Commissioner's Court is considering pursuing those 2 ideas together or if it's one or the other, but if you care about this issue, I think tomorrow is a good time to tune in to Commissioner's Court and to voice your views. And then I will say that if you don't mind, County Attorney, I'm going to speak for you on this. I think the District Attorney's Office and the County Attorney's Office would be enthusiastic to work with the Downtown Alliance and all of your members and the city, of course, on this project. And I can only assume that the Commissioner's Court would be as well.
Thank you so much, Chief. We want to talk about criminal trespass notice real quick here, and tell us, well, can you kind of summarize what it is so that everyone is aware of that? And then are they currently being enforced now by our officers?
Certainly. So a criminal trespass notice happens when an officer is called to a scene because someone is committing criminal trespass. The person is still on scene. The owner of the property has the option to issue this notice to the person in front of the officer saying that they are not welcome on their property and that they need to depart immediately. Officers write a incident report documenting that notice, and that becomes the official record then that stands for a period of 1 year, in which if that person returns and the officer sees that person on the property, an arrest can be made. Criminal trespass are still being enforced by our officers. So if that happens, or if an officer arrives for the very first time and the owner says you need to leave and the person refuses to leave, then an arrest immediately will be made for criminal trespass. And then those are referred over generally to the county attorney's office for any kind of prosecution.
So what should a person do, in particular a property owner downtown in the area, if someone is coming on their property, is disruptive, possibly threatening patrons?
So that's what we're working through right now. There's a few things that I think are important for business owners to do. Many times what they're doing is they're coming onto the property to commit some type of crime. Generally, those are low-level crimes and are not violent in nature, but it might be a theft. It could be a criminal mischief or some type of graffiti. They're there's some different things that that happen there, and obviously we don't want people to have to tolerate that. It is against the law. They need to call 911 if it's in progress. Officers will respond as quickly as they can. Understand, please, that we are resource strapped at this point, and that many times lower level priority calls are holding for quite some time. And I think this has been a source of frustration. We are prioritizing the higher level felony offense, or if it's a crime of violence, to respond to those first before we're looking at those lower level crimes. But also working with our district representatives. So this is a resource that is available to the public, that whether you're a business owner or a homeowner or simply a resident, and you want advice on how to make yourself more safe at home or wherever that location is, that our representatives will come out, will perform a site survey, and give you some good tips on how you can make yourself safer.
Thank you for that. County Attorney Garza, how is your office handling trespassing cases now in general? And then if you could speak to some of the cases that involve these repeat offenders.
So this bears repeating. We accept and prosecute criminal trespass. It has been, I'm grateful for this forum, because unfortunately we have heard a lot of misinformation. We have heard business owners upset and contacting our office and asking us why we aren't prosecuting. We in fact are, and we do. We take action on every case that is brought before us and take every single one seriously. We also have to weigh those, just as the chief said, with resources. As I stated before, the bulk of our cases are DWIs and family violence cases. We look at each case on a case-by-case basis. The question of repeat offenders, criminal trespass is not a case where some types of other offenses can be enhanced when there's multiple. For example, your first DWI would be, I believe, a class B, and then they can get enhanced if you have, then your next DWI is a higher offense, and your next DWI. That's not the case with criminal trespass. They're not enhanced because there's multiple, and we look at each of those on a case-by-case basis. We have not asked our police officers to not arrest. I know they have an incredibly difficult job. They are weighing the resources that they have. They are weighing the call volume that they have. And the same goes for our office. We look at each case and we determine, is there a threat to public safety? Is the person a threat to themselves or somebody else? And a lot of this is based on the reporting of the police officer. That's what we have to depend on. And so if it's a case where, just giving an example, somebody is just on the property, they're not yelling or shouting or threatening, but somebody just wants them off their property, a police officer can respond and take that person off their property. There's no policy from this office that says they cannot do that. Again, I understand, just like our office, they are having to weigh or determine the resources and make incredibly difficult calls. But we do take every case on a case-by-case basis and make a determination on whether we will continue. And just even if a case is not, and I also wanted to point out that, it is not entirely within our call how a case proceeds. Even if the state, our office, accepts a criminal trespass charge, the person can also would go through magistration and can be let out on a PR bond. And so it is not entirely within the control of our office whether and how something proceeds through the criminal justice system.
DA Garza, what about your office? How is it handling repeat offenders, felony repeat offenders?
Absolutely. Well, let me just to clarify, our office doesn't have any specific role in enforcing criminal trespass cases. Let me just say that off the bat. But generally speaking, we evaluate every single case individually based on the facts and circumstances of that case. First, we evaluate the conduct that the person is accused of committing. Was there a victim? Was it an act of violence? How severe was the act of violence? And we do our best in every single case to assess the potential threat to public safety caused by that conduct. Of course, in every single case, we must evaluate the strength of the evidence. We can only hold people accountable when we have sufficient evidence to do that. And I just want to just take this opportunity to let people know that there is a much higher legal burden to convict someone of a crime than there is to arrest someone or to accuse them of a crime. And so our responsibility at the district attorney's office is to make sure that we have the strongest evidence possible to prosecute and to hold people accountable. But that is something that we have to take into account in every case. Obviously, we evaluate the criminal history of the person accused of the crime. We want to know, is there evidence of escalating acts of violence? We also want to know, to the best we can, we want to understand why it is they may have committed this crime. Do they have unmet mental health needs? Are they struggling with substance use disorder? Because if we can get them the help they need to ensure that they don't commit any crime in the future, we want to do that. In instances where that's not possible, our job is to make sure that the public is safe and that we remove people who may be a threat to public safety from our community. And then the final thing that we consider in every single case is the harm to a victim. It is so important to us to hear from victims of crime on a particular case, and that is a central part of our evaluation about how a case will be handled.
Thank you so much. Well, I know we're getting close to the end, and I want to wrap up with all three of you now with this thought and question. It is fair to say, and we've talked about it, we've seen things in the chat room about this as well. The community is concerned about increases in violent crime. We have a perception of a lack of safety. And so what are some things maybe that you've not been able to address so far that you can tell the community to reassure us that everything is being done to keep the area safe? Chief, you want to start?
Thank you, Leslie. And I certainly hear how the community feels about this, and we are paying attention. I want to start by saying that we should not lose sight that Austin, being, I think we increased to the 10th largest city in the country, remains an incredibly safe community. When we look at other cities of our size, I'm very grateful that we don't have some of the crimes that they experience. Having said that, we are seeing some increases, and that is concerning, and we will continue to address those. I think that, it's important for any community that we have to partner with that community, and that means having community that is going to go ahead and call when they see something or they have knowledge. When we say, if you have any information about this particular crime, for them to go ahead and call. So I'm going to continue to ask the community to do that. We are actively moving resources in the police department to address violent crime right now. So moving people back to patrol so that we can keep our response times to the most violent offenses, the shootings, the stabbings that we know do occur in this city, that we are responding to them as quickly as we possibly can, as well as creating units like our aggravated assault unit and our violent crimes task force, which is wholly dedicated to looking at ending violent crime. But with that, the police department, myself, and the men and women here are wholly committed to working with our community, to working with our county and district attorneys to see how we can make things better, whether it's a diversion center or whether we're looking at other measures that are going to get at the root cause of these type of offenses. I don't think you're going to find anyone who thinks that we can arrest our way out of these problems. We have to be better stewards for our community, and we're ready to partner with everyone to make that happen.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much. County Attorney Garza?
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you to the DA for allowing us this opportunity. And I'm happy to sit in any forum to, explain the policies of this office. But I will say, it is really unfortunate how many of these issues have become incredibly politicized and divided our community, because I know that our community cares about our neighbors and all of our neighbors. And so what I would encourage us all to do, and remember, I'm raising a family in this community. We're all raising families in this community, and we certainly want a safe community. We also have incredibly limited resources to be able to do that. And so this office will continue to focus on the severe violent crime in our community and working hand in hand with our law enforcement and our DA. To look at all of this in context. Yes, you can look at, and I'm not trying to say that we're facing high crime in our entire country, but to also look at these issues in the context, and in the context of, we still do largely remain a safe city. And so I encourage our community to look at those statistics, consider where you're getting your sources from. I encourage our law enforcement to try to refrain sometimes from maybe getting involved in the political part of it, because at the end of the day, people pick up that phone because they're worried and they want someone to come help them. And I know law enforcement has an incredibly difficult job of mitigating and de-escalating, but we all play different roles in this process, and we have to work together, because I know that every single one of us cares about this community and are raising families in here. And so I welcome these open dialogues of truth and of facts and of sharing the incredible workload that all of us carries and the role that we have in this community. And I encourage DAA and its membership to support a diversion center. We have to look at this a different way. We have to come at this a different way. And I think being able to provide people their basic needs and resources before they're in the criminal justice system really is the best proactive approach to addressing some of these very real concerns our community has.
Thank you for that. DA Garza?
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone for your time today. I am eager to continue this conversation, and I am available to all of you at any time to continue to work on serious solutions to the challenges that face our community. I also really appreciate the perspective that Dee and the DAA laid out at the beginning of our conversation. We know that several categories of criminal conduct have declined in our community, particularly in the downtown area. But at the same, and we know that that Austin and Travis County remains one of the safest, largest cities in the country. But we also know that all across the country, homicide rates are rising. And that is also true here in our community. And that is why at the district attorney's office, we are prioritizing our time and resources on those kinds of offenses. If a person commits an act of violence in our community, if a person commits a crime that threatens public safety, they will be held accountable. We have moved to ensure that we have prosecutors who are solely focused on this work, and that we are spending our time on this work. But we have a responsibility. Of course, we must hold people accountable when they commit acts of violence, when they commit crimes that threaten our public safety. But if we are serious about addressing crime long-term and reducing the incidence of violent crime in our community, we must also invest in solutions that increase stability in our community and that prevent crime, not just punishing people who engage in crime. So I am, as I said, really eager to continue this conversation and continue this work with all of you, and grateful for your initiative and efforts.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all three of you panelists for spending time this morning on these important topics and educating all of us a little bit more. I want to encourage everyone, if you have questions, thoughts, to reach out to, and I believe Dee, you may get back to this as well. I think the email address is hello@downtownaustin.com. That's pretty easy to remember, hello@downtownaustin.com. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I'm going to turn it back over to my hosts now.
Councilmember Tovo, any closing remarks?
Sure, I'll be brief. Let me just begin by thanking our panelists for engaging in this really important conversation. I know we have lots of interest in it, and I appreciate your saying this is not obviously the last conversation we'll have on this topic. Thanks to you for highlighting the importance of some of those existing initiatives, from the Office of Violence Prevention over at the city to the important strategy, which is providing important strategies in addressing root causes of gun violence. Thank you, County Attorney and District Attorney, for working together on the firearm surrender protocol. That is fabulous news. And we have several other existing diversion programs that we haven't talked about here today. The Downtown Austin Community Court, where a majority of the defendants are individuals experiencing homelessness. That the DAC, as we call it, provides case management and links those defendants to resources, to housing resources, supportive services. We also have the City County Sobering Center, which was mentioned a little bit earlier. That was a program I led in creating, and I want to acknowledge the Downtown Austin Alliance's really critical role in helping bring that into fruition. This is a diversion option for individuals who are charged with public intoxication and connects them to substance use resources. Of note on the horizon, you heard about the Travis County conversation going on around the mental health diversion pilot program for individuals charged with criminal trespass. That is an item I've placed on our agenda for this Thursday, directing our manager to collaborate with our colleagues over at the county. I noticed in the chat several others of you have raised questions about lighting, and I would just call your attention to a Safer 6th Street resolution that is on this week's council agenda that addresses lighting among other physical changes that can enhance safety in the 6th Street area. I just also want to acknowledge the Downtown Austin Alliance for being a partner in so many of the important efforts that the city has done over the last several years to enhance safety, from the Sobering Center to the Homelessness Outreach Street Team, to collaborating and providing funding for the additional mental health services for individuals experiencing homelessness in our downtown area. We need that partnership. We're going to continue to work together and find innovative and important solutions to increasing safety. Members of the public, I know you didn't get all of your questions answered. I see questions in the chat of wanting some numbers about criminal trespass and numbers charged and numbers prosecuted. We will work together with the Downtown Austin Alliance to see what the best forum is for answering some of the questions that were raised today that certainly were addressed in broad spectrum, but for those of you who want more details, we'll work to get those. I want to thank you for your engagement in this area, and know that my office is, like all of the other panelists on here today, just committed to enhancing safety in downtown as well as across our city. So as you have innovative ideas and suggestions, please bring them forward.
Thank you, Council Member. Leslie, thank you again for moderating. Panelists, thank you for the time you committed here. We know your time is extremely valuable. 3 takeaways, I'll make it brief. The fact that we were able to hold a meeting like this today, and the participation, your willingness to do this is, I think, a clear message of our ability to work together. And I just want to assure our members that the communication channels with your offices is open, and ongoing dialogue on the work that we've discussed today. The other point is there are recommended action steps that we could be taking as a community to do things differently. For example, the diversion center, and you have our commitment that the Downtown Austin Alliance will wholeheartedly lean in to help support efforts like that. And then lastly, we heard that there have been no policies adopted to basically prevent crimes from being prosecuted. That came across loud and clear. And again, I think what's important is If you see a crime or if one has been occurred, 911. We heard today that in the 911 system, we know that mental health is being given a priority. Integral Care is working with APD on that. So it makes all the sense in the world to report 911. And if a crime has happened, 311. We can't emphasize that enough. 911, 311. I thank you for everyone's participation today, and hope you can join us for our next forum. Thank you all.